Hi, this is Jeff with Mr. Hardware. Every maintenance process is going to have its benefits and going to have its risks. The benefits of using this wet blasting technique along with a blast media is, first of all, the cost. Second of all, these systems are very lightweight and portable. They're also very flexible. The media is usually a lot safer than using the glass beads. And finally, this type of equipment is very flexible in that you can use a lot of different types of media and accomplish a lot of different types of work with it beyond just the pool tile cleaning. So most important benefits of this system is really the cost and how easy it is to get started and the flexibility of the equipment. Given those benefits, it's really going to help the professional pool tile cleaning companies to diversify their businesses and add this new service into their business. Now, if you're a homeowner, it's also possible for you to use this equipment and incorporate this into your yearly maintenance routine. However, you got to have all the equipment you need. You need to have the pressure washer, you have to have access to the blast media, and you also have to have the pump that's going to pump the material out of the pool when you're finished. So overall, these are very beneficial systems. However, with every maintenance system, you're going to have some risks. Now, the risk of these systems is really dependent mostly upon the type of surface you're working on. So remember, the whole point of this process is to remove the calcium, the lime scale, and the other minerals that are bonded onto the surface, and you're trying to break those free from the surface in order to clean it. Now, as an outcome, you're only going to have three possible choices. You're either going to be spot on and you just get it all off and it looks great, or you're going to underdo it a little bit and you're going to leave a little bit of the residual stains on the surface, or you're going to over blast it. So not all of the jobs are going to be 100% perfect. But in general, this wet blasting the blast media is really going to be the best technique, and it's really the last resort when your chemicals and your hand scrubbing are failing to remove all of these stains from the surface. So the biggest determinants on how these jobs are going to turn out is going to be dependent upon the type of surface that you're working on, because it's the surface that has a lot of the intrinsic risks associated with this process. So as an operator then, given the type of surface that you're working on, its age, and how bad it is, there's really only two adjustments you can make to make these jobs come out well. The first adjustment you can make is you can regulate the output pressure on your pressure washer. Most pressure washers have a regulator so you can turn them down and up a little bit. That's number one. And number two is the type of blast media you're going to use. So when you combine the output pressure with the type of blast media, that's going to give you the flexibility and the changes you're going to have to use in order to accommodate the different types of surfaces. So one setting isn't going to solve all the different problems you're going to come across as a professional. So for example, if you like using a 3800 psi pressure washer and you like the PT2, which is the more aggressive media, that's probably going to work great on the really bad stains on your glazed tiles. Might work okay on the natural stones, but as far as the glass block and maybe faux stones, it's probably going to be too much. So as an operator, you're going to have to adjust the output pressure and adjust the medias to accommodate the different types of natural stones. So as a rule of thumb, the way to look at it is you always start at the least abrasive point and you can always work your way up. And that's number one. Number two is glazed tiles are usually the easiest to work on because the tiles are hardened by the firing process, and they're very durable and they're very resistant to the pressure washing and the blasting, and the outcome's usually very, very good. The next hardest type of surface to work on is going to be your natural stones, and it makes sense because these natural stones are going to have a much softer surface, and they're generally not smooth, so they're rough, there's a lot of pores, and so when you're working on these natural stones, you have a tendency to spend more time and use more media because you're trying to get into the nooks and crannies and clean it well. Another factor to consider when working with these natural stones is that if you use too much pressure with the natural stones, you can flake off the corners or the brittle areas of natural stones and chip away some of the rocks from water features, etc. So you want to be careful, and you want to turn your pressure washer down, and you also want to adjust the type of media to accommodate those situations. Another thing too with the natural stones that you don't get with the glaze tile is you can end up with the tiger striping, because remember that your blast pattern associated with the blast head here is really only about about this big here. It's going to be about a silver dollar size. So when you're working on a large coverage area, instead of just a pool tile ring, it's going to be harder to make a nice, smooth, even cleaned surface. And you may end up with some kind of a raster scanning to where some parts look really clean and some parts don't look so clean. So natural stone is a little more difficult than the glazed tiles because of the nature of the surface. So you have to adjust your pressure and the media to accommodate that. Finally, a lot of pools are being made with glass block. Now, glass can also pose challenges because glass often has coatings on them applied at the factory, and the factory coatings are usually made out of like titanium oxide and other types of materials that are a little bit different than pure glass. So when you are polishing with them, with a polisher, using them by hand, or even using chemicals, any of those processes can react to the surface coating on the glass block. And what you're likely going to get is you're going to get some etching of that coating, which kind of dulls the surface a little bit and causes it to look a little white or less bright. If that's the case, you've etched it a little bit. It's also susceptible to swirling if you're scrubbing it really hard. So on glass block, you want to be careful. That doesn't mean to say that the glass blocks can't be cleaned with the blasting. In fact, it's a great solution. The thing is, you want to turn your pressure washers down, and you really want to adjust your type of media that you're using way down in terms of abrasiveness. So sometimes a medium grade, sometimes the Armex or Natrium baking soda will work. So always start with a least abrasive process first, and then you can work your way up. So regardless of the type of surface you're going to work on, the number one thing is to test it. So test the setup that you have, the pressure and the type of media in an area, and see what the results are before you proceed and you do the entire pool. So when you're comparing the benefits and risks, keep these things in mind. And a lot of these risks are really determined a lot by the surface that you're working on. And remember that the more synthetic the surface, the more unnatural it is, the more difficult it is going to be worked on. And also, if you're working on something very special, like the customer's putting something very unique, what you really want to do is ask the customer to find out who made the material, who's the manufacturer, and see if they have any types of information on how to clean this product in their warranty. It's very important to do a little research if you're coming across surfaces that aren't your standard glazed tile or natural stones. So I hope that this helps as far as weighing the benefits and the risks associated with this maintenance process. And one thing to consider too is we do have a pool tile cleaning waiver sample that might help you to communicate some of these issues with the customers. And if you can do that, and if you can explain to them how the process works and what the potential risks are, then I think you're going to be in very good shape as far as adding professional pool tile cleaning onto your service.